On Thursday, the Supreme Court, to be led by His Lordship Justice Eni Yeboah, the first Chief Justice to sit himself, empanel himself for an election petition under the Fourth Republic, Justice Eni Yeboah, will be presiding over the courts to give a ruling on the election petition that was filed at the end of last year by John Dramani Mahama, the loser of the presidential election of 2020. John Dramani Mahama alleges that there were infractions in the declaration of the results that occasioned a deficit as far as Article 63 is concerned. John Dramani Mahama alleged that nobody won, no candidate won 50% plus one of the total votes cast in that election, and is demanding that the court should order a rerun of the election according to Article 63 between himself and Nana Addo Akufo Addo, the incumbent president at the time of the election. John Mahama himself, a former president. The application of John Mahama, the petition, has been resisted by the Electoral Commission, who is the first respondent, and the second respondent being the declared winner, President Akufo Addo. Both parties have resisted the John Mahama's claims in the court case that has lasted for nearly 2 months. Their resistance is based on the fact that John Dramani Mahama has not been able to acquit himself of the duty to challenge the validity of the election, that he has not been able to show his own calculated and obtained results from the election, and that he has not been able to mount a case. They're asking the Supreme Court, therefore, to dismiss the application and the petition filed by John Dramani Mahama. We'll go through John Dramani Mahama's address. Now, the process of filing these things in court is that all the time there will be opportunity for address at the end of the case. The court has called both parties to file their address. Addresses have been filed, 41 pages for John Dramani Mahama and 102 pages for Nana Addo Akufo Addo. We have isolated John Mahama's 6 main paragraphs in the petition, and he addresses something very important, and that will give the media a lot to talk about. John Mahama talks about the allegation against him that he has not been able to submit his figures to the court. You know that the case of the respondents has always been that. So what did John Mahama actually get? What is he coming to court to say? And John Mahama says that we have always benchmarked this election petition against the other one, and his lawyers argue in his address that it's a totally different matter. I'm going to show you why John Mahama says this petition is different from the 2013 petition, and then we'll show you the response of Akufo Addo. After that, we'll call it a day, and we will wait and see what happens. Okay, without much ado, let's go to John Mahama's paragraph 32, which is where we start. So we read it quickly, and then we can finalize it. It's not on a touch screen, it's in front of you on your television. Okay, so it says that the pleadings and witness statements filed on behalf of the petitioner in this suit show a clear difference between this petition and that of the second respondent, that's Akufo Addo, and the 2 others in 2013. In that petition, that's in Akufo Addo's petition of 2013, the petitioners made allegations of irregularities under 24 subcategories, which they claim took place in 11,000 plus polling stations. Consequently, they sought to have votes of over 4 million votes annulled, and a new declaration made by the court without those votes that would have made the second respondent victorious. So basically, John Mahama is saying that this petition is different from the earlier one, and that in the earlier one, that Akufo Addo was claiming that 11,000 polling stations should be annulled. It continues as follows. It says, the alleged irregularities included presiding officers at polling stations not signing pink sheets. In the nature of that petition, there arose obviously a burden to establish the irregularities alleged in those polling stations and how the cancelling of votes in those polling stations will yield the reliefs they were seeking. Okay, that's very important. So I think let's move on and see what John Mahama says. Okay, it says, continues, that the number of polling stations whose results the petitioners sought to overturn kept changing right to the closing address. The KPMG audit by the court showed that no more than 8,075 unique polling stations were covered by the exhibit submitted, and not 11,000 as alleged. Accordingly, those petitioners were totally unable to discharge the burden of proof. Hence, the following passage in the judgment of Sophia Adingra JSC, which has been quoted in a ruling of your lordships. Let's go on and see what Sophia Adingra said. Adingra said, quote, in order to uphold the grounds for annulling votes that the petitioners are requesting to be annulled for irregularities, malpractices, and statutory breaches, this court must be satisfied that the petitioners have successfully discharged the onus they bore right from the onset. While it is conceivable that the law of elections can be infringed, especially through the incompetence, malpractice, or fraud attributable to the responsible agency, it rests on the person who thus alleges to produce the necessary evidence in the first place. Okay, let's come back to studio and explain this, and then we move on. So what John Dramani Mahama is saying in this part is that this petition that he has filed is different from the 2013 petition that Akufo Addo filed. He says in the 2013 petition that Akufo Addo filed, Akufo Addo was saying that in 11,000 polling stations, there has been infractions. He pointed out to those infractions, and that if those infractions, the votes that constituted those infractions were annulled, he, Akufo Addo, would be the winner of the election, or that there should be a rerun of the election. And John Mahama is saying that that is not the case that he is bringing before the court. He says in that election petition, the burden was on Akufo Addo to show that he, Akufo Addo, had evidence to back the claims that he was making, that there has been these statutory breaches in 11,000 polling stations. John Mahama says further that, in fact, when KPMG came to check everything, they actually only found that there had been statutory breaches in 8,000 of the polling stations. And then they produced the statement of Sophia Adingra, JSC, as she then was, where she talks about the fact that the onus of proof was on Akufo Addo. President Mahama says that is not what he's filing. That's not the kind of election petition that he's filing. So when people continue asking him that, where are your figures, where are your figures, he doesn't even get them because his claims are totally different. Now let's continue and listen to his claims. Okay, let's move on. So it says, this passage can on no account be interpreted either to require petitioners herein, that is him, the today petitioner, to bring his petition along the same line as the petitioners in that election petition, the one Akufo Addo did in 2013, or to prove the same things that the petitioners in that case sought to prove. In this petition, what the petitioner has focused on is a declaration made by the returning officer for the election, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Adukwe Mensah herself, in a public broadcast based on figures she herself gave. It is on the basis of her own figures, as well as her unconstitutional and illegal acts in connection with the making of the declaration and the gazetting of the declaration, that this petition has been instituted. Very, very instructive. Let's try and understand what they are saying. Okay, so the point they are making here is that Akufo Addo's petition 2013, he identified infractions. He came to court. The burden was on him to prove the infractions. People asked John Mahama, where is your result? John Mahama is saying that that's a no-brainer. You don't have to ask me that question. I am not coming to court based on any results. I'm coming to court because the Electoral Commission, in the declaration she herself made, has breached the law. The declaration is inconclusive. The declaration doesn't make anybody the winner. So we have come to court here to challenge her declaration, the unconstitutional and illegal acts in connection with making that declaration and the gazetting of the declaration. That is why we are in court. We are in court to challenge her and the work that she did between the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th of December. That's why we are in court. So we don't need to bring any figures. Let's continue and hear what John Mahama says beyond. It says, the matters to be proved by the petitioner are those matters that he has sought to challenge in this suit, not an imaginary case that is constructed on a basis similar to what the petitioners in a previous election petition had instituted in their suit. That's interesting. He says the matter that he has to prove are the matter that he has brought to court, not comparing his petition to another petition. Okay, let's move on. It says, it is evident that counsel for both respondents, that is Electoral Commission and Akufo Addo, have been under a misapprehension, that's a misunderstanding, as to the nature of the suit, which misapprehension is also manifested in their so-called preliminary objection. The averment in paragraph 44 of the answer to the first respondent says, the first respondent adds that petitioner has failed to indicate the exact number of votes and percentages that he or the other candidates ought to have obtained in comparison to the number of votes and percentages declared by the first respondent. Let's move on. It says the fact that the petitioner is not indicating in this petition, that it says the fact that John Mahama is not indicating in this petition what he and the other candidates like Akufo Addo should have obtained compared to the numbers declared by the Electoral Commission cannot lead to a conclusion that the declaration by the Electoral Commissioner is constitutional. So Mr. Chikataya and President Mahama are saying that, well, you say that we didn't bring any figures to you. Yeah, we didn't, because we are not here, we are not about figures. What we are here to do is to challenge what the Electoral Commissioner did. And the fact that we didn't bring figures does not mean that what she did was constitutional. Let's move on. It says, the case of the petitioner here, that's the case of President Mahama, is simply that in addition to the fundamental constitutional infractions committed by Gina Dukwe-Mensah, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and the returning officer of the presidential election, the figures announced in the declaration she herself made on the 9th of December 2020, no candidate got more than 50% of the valid votes cast, and as a constitutional consequence, a runoff election will be required. Petitioner's own figures are not relevant. That is, John Mahama's figures are not relevant to determining whether that claim is well-founded or not. Okay, so President Mahama is saying again that the petition, his petition is founded on a single platform. That the Electoral Commission herself, by the declaration she made on the 9th of December, in that declaration, contained in that declaration, are figures that indicate that no candidate made a 50% plus one. Therefore, using those figures to announce Nana Akufo Addo as the winner of the election by a first-round victory is unconstitutional and is illegal. And that is why they are in court. That's the point they are making. Now, later tonight, we will tabulate the figures that Jean Mensah announced on the 9th of December. We're going to put them together and add them all up and see what we get and see whether we can make some sense out of this. But this is President Mahama's case. Let's move on and see. Okay, so the next one is that the court is invited to take judicial notice of the fact that ahead of December 7th elections, political parties were urged not to seek to announce results based on figures they themselves had collated, but to await the official declaration of the chairperson of the first respondent as the returning officer for the presidential election. Now, that's also interesting. Mr. President Mahama and Mr. Chikata are saying that these Ghanaian people, before the elections, everybody said that political parties beware, be careful. Political parties be careful. Don't be churning out results. Don't announce your own results. Don't do that. Wait for the Electoral Commission. Now they have come to court and said they waited for the Electoral Commission. What the Electoral Commission brought to court in itself was wrong. And then you say they should go and bring their own figures. That's really what President Mahama is saying. He says, you said we should not announce results. We should be careful. We should be circumspect. You used all the big English. Now we have been circumspect. We have waited for the Electoral Commission to bring its results. The results he brought are in it and of itself wrong. We are in court to challenge that. What does it matter whether we have figures or not? That's the claim they are making. Fairly the claim they are making. But we'll get to a bit more. We'll listen to what President Akufo Addo says as well. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on and see what we get. Okay. It is the first respondent which, as provided for in article is the chairperson or the returning officer for the presidential elections. Ignore this one. It doesn't make our point that much. It's a public hearing. We're not in court here. Let's move on. The stark untenable nature of the claim that the petitioner should have put forward his own figures is put in sharp relief when it is recalled that by virtue of Article 64(1) of the Constitution, any citizen of Ghana can present a petition challenging the validity of the presidential election results. Now, that's an important matter also they are raising. President Mahama is saying that you're asking me to bring results, bring results, bring results. The constitutional article based on which I have come to court, it says that any Ghanaian can challenge. So if me, a Ghanaian, Paul Adom-Otchere, I didn't contest for the election. I was not a candidate of the election. I was not a running mate. I was not a parliamentary candidate of any party. I am not a registered member of any party. I am allowed to challenge the election under the Constitution. So if it were me challenging the election, will the Supreme Court ask me what results did I get? Where did I calculate my results? They won't ask me that. But mind you, the CI that the Supreme Court has clarified, Article 64, indicates that in that CI, that the only person who can file the petition is the candidate who is claiming to have lost the election. We have to remember that anyway. Whether that's right or wrong, that is the position of the procedure at this time. That's the position of the legal procedure. Okay, let's move on. No one is asking the second respondent, President Akufo Addo, either to bring his figures of the number of votes he and other candidates got, nor has the second respondent put forward his figures. They are saying that in this court, President Akufo Addo has not put any figures. Nobody's asking him for figures, as that would have no relevance in the case before this court. Repeatedly, under cross-examination, PW1 sought to make the following clear to both counsel for the respondents during cross-examination by counsel for the second respondent. We have not come to court to take over the work of the Electoral Commission. Now they are quoting Johnson Asiedu-Nkatia, who says that they have not come to court to take over the work of the Electoral Commission, and therefore they don't have any figures. Let's move on very quickly. So that's President Mahama's case. President Mahama's case is that, look, we have come to challenge the Electoral Commission's declaration. At the end of the program, we'll show you the Electoral Commission's declaration, perhaps the video, and then the details that she puts out, and then we see it. Okay, let's begin with what Akufo Addo is saying. Okay, let's start. So Akufo Addo, in response, this has already gone to the court, and they are urging the court to rule this way. They say, it is important to remind ourselves of the reliefs for which petitioner in this honorable court may make a final comment on each of them, and then invite the court to dismiss each of them. They are, and he goes on, this is the claim of John Mahama. John Mahama is asking, so this is Akufo Addo quoting the claim of John Mahama, just so that we are clear. John Mahama is asking a declaration that Jean Adukwe Mensah, chairperson of the Electoral Commission, the second respondent for the presidential election held on December 7th, was in breach of Article 63.3 of the 1992 Constitution in the declaration she made in respect of the presidential election that was held on the 7th of December. Let's move on, and they provide the answer. They say, my lords, from the pleadings of the petitioner, that's from the pleadings of John Mahama, and evidence adduced by his witnesses, which is discussed above, Jean Adukwe Mensah was not in breach of Article 63.3 of the Constitution 1992. A second respondent had satisfied the conditions of Article 63.3, which is to say he should have won by 50% plus 1 prior to being elected president-elect. Let's move on. They say John Mahama is also asking for a declaration that, based on the data contained in the declaration made by Jean Mensah, the chairperson of the respondent and the returning officer of the presidential election, no candidate satisfied the requirements of 63.3. This is John Mahama's major claim, that based on the data in the Jean Mensah's declaration, no candidate got 50% plus 1. This is the focus of John Mahama's case. This is the gravamen of John Mahama's case. John Mahama's case, he hopes, is going to rest on a single pillar, a really huge pillar, the allegation that based on the figures that Jean Adukwe Mensah produced to the Ghanaian people in a live radio and television broadcast on the 9th of December, based on those figures, no candidate got 50% plus 1. That's John Mahama's case. That's where it ends and begins. This is the fundamental focus of his case, the gravamen. Let's move on and see what they say. Okay, now Akoto Ampao says that, contrary to the above relief, the admitted facts in the pleadings and the evidence of the witnesses of John Mahama demonstrated in the foregoing clearly show that the data as contained in the declaration of Jean Mensah, which was based on the summation of the original coalition forms in the possession of John Mahama and attached as exhibit by him and his witnesses, confirmed that Nana Akufo Addo obtained over 51% of the total votes of the valid votes cast in 2020 election, and thus far exceeds the threshold of more than 50% of the total number of valid votes cast as dictated by Article 63.3. Now, the case on Thursday is going to turn on this matter. Everything is going to turn on this. John Mahama says that in the data contained, and get me ready the Electoral Commission data. In a minute, I'll call for the Electoral Commission data. Get it ready. Now, John Mahama says that the declaration made by Jean Mensah on the election on the 9th of December, her own declaration, the one that she herself did, that one, it's clear that nobody won 50% plus 1. Nana Akufo Addo says no. When Johnson Asedu Ketia came to the court, and we put him to strict proof, and we showed him the documents which John Mahama had attached to his petition. So they say John Mahama has attached to his petition all the regional coalition forms, the 16 regional coalition forms, based on which Jean Mensah made the declaration. That John Mahama had attached as exhibit. When Asedu Ketia was given the calculator to calculate the number of votes, it was clear that in that document that Jean Mensah presented, the Akufo Addo had won. The only problem was that Jean Mensah had done an error of nomenclature. She had referred to a certain figure as total valid votes cast when she should have been referring to another figure. Let's go back to Jean Mensah's video declaration. We will come back to the data that we have done this evening. We have calculated the votes that Jean Mensah announced on the 9th of December. We've calculated, not the percentages. We have done the percentages too, where there's a big error. But we have calculated the number of votes. Akufo Addo 6 million something, John Mahama 6 million something, everybody something, until Alfred Walker gets 9,700 and something. And we will tell you the total, and you will see whether there's an error or not. That's the point Akoto Ampao is making. So at this stage, let's go and listen to Jean Mensah. It's a very short broadcast. This is what she said.
At the end of the polls, Nana Addo Akufo Addo of the New Patriotic Party obtained 6,730,413 votes, being 51.595% of the total valid votes cast. John Dramani Mahama of the National Democratic Congress obtained 6,214,889 votes, being 47.366% of the total valid votes cast. Christian Kwabena Andrews of the Ghana Union Movement obtained 105,565 votes, being 0.80.
Okay, so you heard Jean Mensah. Now let's put this on the screen for you to see. These are the total valid votes cast that was calculated by Jean Mensah on the day. Put this on the screen. 2020 presidential results. So you see Nana Addo Akufo Addo 6,730,000, John Dramani Mahama 6,214,000, Christian Kwabena Andrews Goom 100,000. He did well. Ivor Greenstreet 12,000. Nationwide presidential votes CPP 12,000. Ikwa Donko 5,000. Henry Ebedlate 3,000. Asana Yarega 7,000. Percival Kofi Akpalu 7,000. David Apasera PNC 10,000. Nationwide presidential votes 10,000. Bridget Jubenuku 6,000 PPP. Nana Konedo Ajiman Rawlins 6,000. Alfred Walker 9,000. Now when you calculate all of these figures that Jean Mensah announced, you come to a total valid votes cast of 13,121,111. That's what you get. 13,121,111. Now, let's look at the percentages. Let's look at, okay. However, when you calculate the announcement Jean Mensah made on the night, when you calculate the percentage, Akufo Addo 51.5, blah, 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 you come to a total percentage of over 100%. That's where the error is. And that's what Jean Mensah is making the point, that in announcing the total valid votes cast, she made an error, but that if you add all the votes that cast that day, you'll come to 13,121,000. And when you do a percentage of what Akufo Addo got at 13,121,000, you come to the correct percentage of Akufo Addo getting 51.2 and not 51.5. The case is going to turn on that at the Supreme Court on Thursday, where the Supreme Court will be giving a ruling on the matter. And we hope that after the ruling there will be peace. We hope that the losing party, whoever they are, will not ask for a review, because we saw that in 2013, Akufo Addo got a lot of plaudits for not asking for a review. We hope that nobody will ask for a review and we can come back, and whoever has lost will concede. If there's a second round, we'll get ready and go and vote in the second round. The Electoral Commission will have to organize itself, and we'll go and vote in the second round and have a peace of mind and wait for the next 4 years. If there's no second round and it is declared, whoever has lost will concede, and whoever has won will be gracious in victory. So we expect a second election declaration on Thursday. This time, not by the constitutionally mandated body, the Electoral Commission, but by the third arm of government, the judiciary. That will be the Supreme Court.